Okay. Today, our nation stands on the precipice of its next frontier in finance, and it is one that is using the latest technology and regulations to basically instill a new culture of financial fairness. Welcome, everyone, to FinFair 2015. This is Wall Street's first conference to feature the leadership, the products, and the technologies that are driving the crowd-centric retail alternatives market and democratizing our investing landscape. Today, for the first time, Wall Street will be introduced to this promising asset class and get a taste of some of the remarkable ingenuity that's occurring in the crowd-centric retail alternative space. Much of this innovation is emanating out of first-generation marketplace lending platforms, first-generation equities crowdfunding platforms, and it's all made possible by a modern regulatory regime. So what exactly are crowd-centric retail alternatives? It's essentially a new generation of retail alts that are designed to bring non-correlated yield and pre-IPO growth back to mainstream investors. They could essentially include any type of private asset that is using our new regulatory framework to convert private instruments into publicly attainable securities. It could also be any private or public fund, managed account, or online platform that provides investors with access to some of these rising asset classes, such as peer-to-peer, peer-to-business, peer-to-real estate debt, as well as Jobs Act-inspired equity offerings. FinFair is produced by Dara Albright Events. I'm Dara Albright, proud co-founder of FinFair. For those who don't know me, I have a long history of putting events together and conferences together that really introduce Wall Street to new technologies, industries, and asset classes, starting back in the 1990s when I was with Unterberg Tobin and helped organize the Wall Street's very first Space and Satellite Conference, to January 2012, when I produced the nation's very first crowdfunding conference. It was headlined by Congressman McHenry and Dave Wield, two key architects of the Jobs Act. And really, it really launched the industry. Many of the industry leaders met for the first time at that event, which was January 23rd, 2012, in the same exact venue that we had the cocktail reception in last night. And then in early 2013, I co-founded Lend It Conference, which many of you may know went on to really become the largest and most recognized global P2P and online lending conference. So being in the conference business, I realized the industry is just saturated with conferences. And probably the last thing Wall Street needs is another one. So why FinFair and why now? Well, with all of the conferences that are out there, I realized that there aren't any that focus on the innovations in retail financial products. And it's not really hard to understand why. I mean, the reality is that over the years, increasing regulatory burdens have made it nearly impossible for financial service providers to want to manage retail accounts, let alone to want to finance emerging small businesses. And it's just simply less cumbersome and more lucrative to focus on the institutional or the accredited investor or the larger businesses. And this really is a travesty. Our country can no longer afford to overlook retail investors, because the truth is if we don't do something to bring yield and growth back to small investors, America will be facing a retirement crisis that I promise you will make the 2008 financial meltdown look like the Roaring '20s. We can no longer sit back and allow our most exciting growth companies to appreciate in the coffers of a handful of PE and VC funds, and instead of in the retirement accounts of the investing public. Especially today with today's environment of historically low interest rates, we can't rely anymore on conventional fixed income asset classes. I was at a conference early this year where analysts were talking about high yield bond funds, and they were all giddy about projected returns of 5.5% this year. 5.5%. I mean, that pales in comparison to what investors are getting in the marketplace lending space today. And we also can't rely anymore on a social security system that is tinkering on bankruptcy. Today we have median 401k and IRA accounts at a paltry $3,000. 50% of all working households are without a retirement account at all. Lotto is their retirement plan. So this is actually became one of my most favorite slides, and it just shows how dysfunctional our equity markets have become. And actually, Andy Val, thank you, because you were the inspiration behind this slide. It basically compares the Intel IPO to Alibaba's IPO. Intel went public in 1971. You're going to meet very soon some of the gentlemen that were behind that IPO. But it went public in 1971 at a $58 million valuation, raising less than $8 million on its IPO. It had a 38-page prospectus, 0 section for risk factors. Investors, retail investors that bought Intel on its IPO day and held it, realized a 280,000% return, okay, if they held it till today. Compare that to Alibaba that goes public last year, a 325-page prospectus, 39 pages alone were of risk factors. They raised $25 billion on its IPO at a $170 billion valuation. Now think about this. In order for Alibaba's IPO investors to realize the same return as Intel's, Alibaba is going to need to be trading at a $480 trillion market capitalization, which is 6 times the GDP of every nation on this planet combined. And that is just outrageous. It is outrageous that retail investors have to wait until a company is billions in market cap before it has any opportunity to invest. So I ask you, where is the economic democracy in forcing retail investors to serve as the exit strategy for the financially privileged? There simply is none. And you know what? Our credit markets are as equally flawed and unjust as our equity markets. The conventional banking system is just not serving retail investors anymore, and it's certainly not serving America's small businesses. And I'll tell you something, even peer-to-peer is becoming less peer-to-peer. It's becoming overrun with institutional investors. The good news is everything changes now, and I think Reggae is the game changer. We're seeing the financial winds are rapidly shifting, and they're blowing right in the direction of the individual investor. Reggae is a game changer. It's not only facilitating capital formation, but it's narrowing the investment opportunity gap, and that was really the initial intention of its sponsor, Congressman David Schweikert. Now, the equity guys in this room will likely see Reggae Plus as maybe a possibility to rebirth the small cap IPO, level the playing field for some smaller issuers and smaller investors. But what everyone is going to learn here today, particularly from Brian Korn's presentation at 1:30, is that Reggae Plus is also changing the fixed income landscape. And what it's doing is it's being used to convert illiquid debt and real estate assets into publicly attainable securities. And eventually, we're going to see many of our private debt, equity, and real estate opportunities that were once only reserved for accredited investors, it'll make their way to the mass market. Reggae Plus is also the great uniter. And as witnessed in this room, it's bringing together the equity guys, the debt guys. It's bringing together the Wall Street establishment and the fintech pioneers. I think Reggae is going to really ensure the growth of an already rapidly proliferating industry. This is truly a pivotal moment for financial services, and all roads are leading to crowd-centric retail alts. We have an environment now where financial advisors are already flocking to retail alternatives, and they're already increasing their clients' retail assets in alternative holdings. In fact, McKinsey says that almost 50% of all retail revenues are going to come from the alternative space, retail alts. Goldman Sachs believes that retail alts are in the early stages of a 5 to 10 year growth trend and capable of becoming a $2 trillion asset under management opportunity. And none of these reports take into account anything that's really happening in this crowd-centric space. So we're seeing now, but we're seeing both private as well as public investment products emerging to really satisfy retail's appetite for alternative products. And I think now with Reggae Live, this is only going to accelerate. We're seeing a growing number of next-generation broker-dealers that are emerging to help retail investors access crowd-centric retail alternatives, and we're going to meet some of them here today as well. And we're also seeing investment in just fintech, investment pouring into fintech. I mean, we're looking at projections that it's expected to triple just in the next 3 years. So crowd-centric retail alternatives have arrived, they are here, and they arrive with a host of analytics, tools, mobile apps, and technologies to support them. All of these innovations will have enormous implications for the future of financial services, and we're honored to feature some of them here today at FinFair 2015. Today, you're going to meet some of the funds that are bringing marketplace lending returns to retail investors. You're going to see some of the new tools that are helping financial advisors actively manage their clients' P2P holdings. You're going to see providers of custody solutions that are enabling financial advisors to actually hold private alternative asset classes under management. We're going to see some groundbreaking mobile apps that are going to help millennials gather and grow their nest eggs. We're going to see apps that are going to transform community banking. We're going to see new technologies that are going to change the way offering memorandums are structured and change the way securities are marketed to the public. You're going to learn how Reggae Plus is engineering these new retail products, how financial advisors and RIAs could capitalize on Reggae Plus. You're going to learn some of the latest trends in liquidity and clearing. We're going to talk a lot about venture exchanges. And we're all going to leave here finally having an answer to the question we've all been asking for a while. Is this a fintech? Is this a fintech bubble, or is this a financial revolution? We really do have a remarkable day ahead. And before I get started, I just want to thank our sponsors, whose innovation drives our industry forward and whose capital resources make these events possible. I'd also like to thank our attendees who are joining us here in person, as well as globally across the globe through the virtual airways. You know, anyone that has ever organized a conference knows that it is a true labor of love. You are basically putting in 24 hours a day, you're not sleeping, and nothing ever goes according to plan. And you know, long after the lights are out, the doors are closed, the conference is over, and the adrenaline fades, you know, you have people reaching out to you saying, you know, Dara, I launched my business at your event. I found my business partner at your event. At one of your events. I found my biggest client at one of your events. Or, you know, I'm in this industry because of you. And you hear things like that, and you know what? It makes all of it worthwhile. Now, I realize that you guys didn't come here for the food, and you didn't come here for the view. You came here to secure new business. You know, and whether it's at the end of the day today or whether it's 8 months from now, it's my mission to make sure that each one of you here capitalizes on your participation, because that's what it's all about. So please use today as an opportunity to just expand your knowledge, expand your network, expand your business, make a boatload of money, and together today, let's make Wall Street history.